All right, so hi, I'm Professor Schott, and I am back with you to discuss lesson two. How did SARS covariant 2 cause a pandemic? So in this lesson, we are going to be looking at um, what are zoonotic diseases. We're going to explain where did SARS covariant 2 come from, what is a pandemic, and how does the virus spread? All right, so zoonotic disease, I touched on this in our last video. These are diseases that are transmitted from animal hosts to humans. So 60% of all the diseases in humans originated in animals other than humans. So again, that means they had a reservoir somewhere else and are jumping species. It is April 2024, and this month we have been looking at some news. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there have been avian influenza cases in cattle. And this H5N1 influenza virus, I think is what it is. I'll double check on that, is jumping from cattle to people now. And scientists are a little bit concerned, but they're saying that the virus has not acquired a whole bunch of new mutations to make it highly transmissible from person to person. So they're not super worried about it, even though they're kind of keeping tabs on it. So what does that mean? That means that in order for a virus to jump species, in order to get from animals into another species like humans, it has to have antigenic shift. So this is where genetic material in the virus has changed. So this occurs when two or more viral strains combine genetic material and a novel virus emerges. These new forms could be potentially transmitted to humans, and we think that antigenic shift may have contributed to the SARS COVID outbreaks. So there are a lot of different zoonotic viruses. Again, I'm talking to you a little bit about avian influenza. We're not looking at the H7N9. We are actually looking at this, I think it's H5N1. I will double check on the one that I'm talking about. So actually, I'm going to escape out of this for just a moment. And I'm going to look in my browser because I want to know how to outbreak. Okay, yes. So this is the one that we're seeing right now. So I'm gonna try and see. There we go. So it is H5N1. So this is, you can see the date on this. This is April 1st, 2024. But there was a case of human avian influenza. So this is this H5N1 virus that is mainly in birds. And we've had a lot of outbreaks over the last year of birds. If you guys recall the price spike in eggs a year prior, that was due to the loss of chickens. A bunch of chickens got this H5N1 virus and they died. And so we didn't have a lot of animals to lay eggs. So the number of eggs on the market went down and the price went up. Okay. So if you want to learn more about that, you're welcome to look for it. We're not discussing this, but I just wanted to show you that it was H5N1, this particular variant of influenza that is what we are seeing in cattle and people. All right, so back here. So that we first saw in 2003 here, but these are all zoonotic viruses, and you can see all the different types. Many of them are referred to as emerging viruses, meaning that they've only been able to infect humans at a large number very recently. So we often watch these because we worry that any of these novel ones could become the next pandemic. And we all saw that happening with COVID, obviously. It emerged in China, and then it really was about 3 months before it was here in the United States in a very serious manner. These are a major concern of government and health agencies. So the CDC is going to keep an eye on all of these. Viruses that evolve in animal hosts may have unique characteristics that have never been experienced by the immune systems of humans, and as such, it can have a high fatality rate. So, where did it come from? We don't have the precise intermediate animal host of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. We are still looking at um, these species here. So, when it first emerged, we suspect it originated in horseshoe bats, which I am a big fan of bats. I think they're really cute, but they have unique biological properties that make them a host for viruses. And there's a reason why they carry so many. So we have to be very careful when we interact with bats at all, or if we're in their space, that we are protecting ourselves, that we're not picking up something from them. So several other wild animal species were proposed as intermediate hosts. Pangolins, they're really cute. Also, they kind of roll up in a little ball and they've got these scales on them. Minks and also snakes, but genetic analysis revealed a low probability of an intermediate host other than bats. So the coronavirus of the horseshoe bat is about 96% genetically similar to the COVID virus that infected people. And the pangolin one is about 90%. So we're still looking a lot at this horseshoe bat. Coronaviruses in bats are really common and have been present in bats for a very long time. So when we talk about a pandemic, we have a couple of other terms that we may look at first. So endemic is something that's consistently present in the population, but it's limited to a specific geographical area. When we say something is endemic, it's often referred to as the baseline or normal of a particular level of disease in a population. An outbreak is a greater than anticipated increase in the number of endemic cases specific to a geographical area. So if it's not completely controlled and contained, it can become an epidemic. So I often think about Ebola when Ebola has an outbreak. Like it's not frequent, but when it does, they rush to try and contain it because it's such a high fatality rate. If you don't know, Ebola's fatality rate is, I want to say, around 80%. So that means 80% of people that contract Ebola end up dying from it, which is very different than um, COVID. Even at its worst, I want to say it was less than 1%. An epidemic occurs if there is an unexpected increase in the number of cases in a specific geographical area. And then a pandemic is a disease that grows exponentially and moves between geographically distant populations. So that's when it goes more global. So here we see with an epidemic, it's staying locally. But then with an outbreak, we've just got the movement of disease in a place that we don't expect. For example, another example, here in Texas, we've had, I think, one malaria case this year, if I recall, which malaria is typically endemic to South America and even really far South America, not as much even in the northern Mexico regions of Middle America, but usually like South America. So it's unusual to see malaria outbreak in the United States. Um, then we have pandemic, where we've got a large number of people that are contracting the disease and spreading it. So how does the coronavirus spread? Well, there was a lot of debate about this up front, right? We were all freaking out and sanitizing our groceries and buying, you know, sanitizing wipes and hand sanitizer. And people were like, should I wear my shoes in the house? Should I not? It really was a lot of confusion early on. But coronaviruses or COVID spreads via direct contact. So this is when there is contact between the infected person and the animal, transferring microorganisms. So this is fluids from the respiratory system in the form of droplets or aerosols can easily transmit viruses between individuals. So a sneeze, for example, can project droplet material for probably at least 6 feet around the person in every direction. Indirect contact transmission occurs when there is no direct human to human contact. So instead, we're getting it from a contaminated surface, like a door handle, and then you rub your eyes, or you eat something, or you get it in your mouth somehow. Somehow there's some indirect transmission. So again, coughing, sneezing, talking is the primary route of transmission. That would be direct contact. Um, the virus can become aerosolized up to 6 feet around the person and be visible in the air, or sorry, viable in the air for 3 hours. So that means it's still capable of infecting other people. So the CDC recommended wearing masks to reduce the rate of infection between individuals. And they still do when someone is infected with this virus. Indirect transmission, the virus can survive on a surface for about 3 days. But this would again involve them touching a surface and then rubbing their eye or putting it in a point of entry, is what we call that. Washing your hands is going to reduce the rate of infection from a surface. So always wash your hands when you're going places or if you're touching tables or before you sit down to eat. That'll help. The other thing is, it is a zoonotic virus, so pets and certain wildlife can carry this virus, but there's no indication right now that infected pets can transmit it back to humans. I know there were a couple of cases where like cats and like maybe a tiger at a zoo got COVID. All right. So again, you can pause here for a moment and read through these, and then we'll go over the answers. All right, so question 3, which of the following organisms possess a form of coronavirus that is most genetically similar to the SARS-CoV-2 in humans? That would be horseshoe bats. We discussed that they had a virus that was 96% similar. Question 4, which of the following terms best describes a virus that has begun to move from its original populations to surrounding populations of hosts? So we've got outbreak, epidemic, pandemic, or endemic. So our key term here is it's moving from its original population to surrounding. All right, I would say that would be an outbreak because this is a greater than anticipated increase in the number of endemic cases in a specific geographical area. But I would say it's an epidemic then, because then epidemic is when we're moving to a specific geographical area. Let's double check our diagram to make sure. Yes, an outbreak is movement of the disease. So let's go back and look. Yeah, when it's moving from its original population, I would say that's going to be an epidemic. If remember, pandemic was when it's moving to distantly related, or sorry, distantly not related, geographically distant populations. So I wouldn't say that would necessarily be a pandemic yet. All right, so we will continue this conversation in lesson 3.